Fighting out of the red corner, we have the X Instinct from Stylecraft. It sports an all-new body with a vector motor with 4 hours of runtime. This motor has the ability to speed up the moment it senses resistance and meet that resistance. Fighting out of the gold corner, we have the new Gold FX One system from Babyliss, and these are both top-tier machines from these companies in their own right.
And of course, if you choose to purchase the X Instinct from Stylecraft, you can use the code Eddie. You'll save 15% off. And if you choose to purchase the Babyliss, you can head over to Williamsport Barber Supply. The link will be down below. These two are going to go head to head in this tutorial.
X from Stylecraft fighting out of the gold corner and the Gold FX1 Clipper from Babyliss.
Welcome back to the YBA, where we have over 700 videos to help you learn, and today is no exception. As we put these two top-tier machines up against each other, we're going to see if we can determine the winner at the end of this video. Now, this canvas here is a pretty challenging haircut. It is a low fade on some fairly fine hair. So, keeping with the faded acronym that you guys seen in the previous video, first I want to find out what the client wants. Be thorough and ask questions. And the A stands for adapt and analyze, which is what I'm doing right now. I am analyzing all his growth patterns, his curls, his colics, and I'm looking for anything that's going to present a challenge a little bit later into this haircut. Now, I'm actually going to start off this haircut using the Ace trimmer from Stylecraft, and I'm going to use it on both sides. One of the reasons why: this is a very soft set trimmer. It will not leave a harsh line, and it will be very easy for me to maneuver it, get it around the ears, being this is a low fade, and I'm taking a bit of a shortcut here because I did not remove the bulk. I felt like I could do this with this trimmer, and I gotta say, it worked out just fine. So we're gonna go around the back and sides, and I'm gonna set in my base guideline. I think that every barber should have a minimum of 2 trimmers. If you have 2 trimmers, one of them can be set really close, and one of them can be set a little further back for this purpose right here, where I'm going to be able to remove this line quite easily. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm actually going to be picking up the X Instinct, and I'm going to use it to remove some of the bulk with clipper over comb. I just want to hold it in on the angle that I see, and I'm going to start removing some of the stuff that sticks out above the comb. This is actually a little challenging, and it takes a little bit of time. And if you guys want to head over to the video, clipper over comb, I pretty much covered every little bit of that, and I'll post that right here. You guys can check that out. However, I'm not trying to do too much here. I'm just trying to start to build a connection into the top, and I'm looking to kind of reduce some of those wave patterns and some of that weight, so that when I get into this, which I have my mannequin here, and I'm going to show you guys a couple of tricks when it comes to low fades, how you're going to use your clippers, how you're going to use your trimmers, and how you're going to do your detail work. So I'm actually going to do this all the way around the head, including the Babyliss side of the haircut, just so that we are starting from the exact same point with the fade on both sides. As I begin this part of the haircut, I want you to take note of what I'm doing. I have the clipper in the open position. That means the lever is all the way down, but I'm also tipping it out on the scalp. When I do that, it's not going to cut as close. As I angle it lower and lower and lower, I'm actually going to get closer to the length of an actual open taper. So I'm using that to start to snap in a bit of a blend towards the top. I have told you guys a lot of times it is not necessary for you to flick your wrist. And in most cases, that is true. However, on a haircut like this with really fine hair, it's going to show every mistake. I really want to be gentle, and I really want to be careful. So you're going to notice that I'm using a lot of wrist flipping in this. You're going to see it's actually going to build a nice little weight section there. And now I can actually put this flat, and I can start working my lever down. So little by little, I can click it down, literally one click, and run over the bottom line. Does that get rid of it? No. Move it down. Starting to use the corners now, and I'm manipulating that clipper. So anytime you guys see me fading, you're going to see me doing a combination of using the corner and tipping the butt end of that clipper out. When I'm putting in guidelines, you're going to notice that I'm usually going to try to use that horizontally. Yeah, I might still be tipping it out to soften the guideline, but my goal is to put that in horizontally and make a nice straight line. And as soon as I begin blending, that's when I cock the clipper on an angle, and I might include some of that tipping it out just to create a little bit more space to make things a little bit easier. So let me take a break for a second to tell you guys about my golf game and how much it has been improving and how many great courses and cool people I've been able to meet along the way. But where do I find the time? The answer is my scheduling app. I've been using Booked In for over 3 years. They are rock solid. And today they decided to offer 50% off the first 3 months. All you guys got to do is go to bookedin.com/Eddie and check out the offer below. But I was a little bit concerned because I got a lot of older clients, younger clients, everybody in between. I didn't want one that would make them download an app, and Booked In does not make you download an app. They just literally go to the link, select the barber, select the service, and boom, they're in there and they're in the chair, and it just stops all that back and forth manually putting in the appointment. So because of that, I've had time to go out and do some of the stuff that I enjoy the most. All right, y'all, back to this fight. There's definitely something to be said about using the Instinct. I know for a fact that it's going to speed up. I know it's going to make my life easier. But above all of those reasons, I know that it's going to be a pretty predictable haircut with this clipper because it's not really changing speeds. It's just speeding up to meet what it needs to maintain the speed. So all in all, I was pretty impressed by how well this clipper did on this side. So I actually pulled out my Pegasus. A Pegasus is just a protege trimmer with an X Pro blade on it. The X Pro blade will fit on all of the Stylecraft trimmers, and it will be a big upgrade to some of them. So when you put that on there, you're going to notice it's going to be a big upgrade to pretty much any of the Stylecraft Orgama trimmers. So next, we're going to take our Uno 2.0. This thing is awesome, 2 hours of runtime, and it has USB-C charging. It even has a little dock that you could purchase separately to keep this on your station. But really, using a single foil is a really good thing for low fades, especially when there's not enough room. We just want to ease into the blend, and the Ace trimmer gave me a really easy line to blend out. And as you guys can see, this part of the blend is coming together quite well. So the next thing we're going to do here, we're going to use a little shear over comb. As you see me, I'm just trying to break up these sections. I'm just trying to get this curl to lay the way that I want it to. And this is a really easy way to get in there and kind of just detail what you want to do. And the last step to this whole process, I'm actually going to begin tipping the clipper completely sideways. And I'm just looking to kind of texturize out some of the areas that are not really blending as perfectly as I want them to. But all in all, you can say that the Instinct did a great job on this side. It was very predictable and very easy to use. Now, if I was to compare this for a second to the previous Instinct, which was a lot smaller, I actually enjoy the platform here. I actually have a Rogue in my hand right now. This and the X Instinct, they really share a very similar body, and I like having a little bit more to hold on to. So now let's go over to the Babyliss side. We have the FX One, and I'm attempting to do the same thing. All haircuts are going to be a little different on one side versus the other. And on this side, his hair just wanted to mat down and lay down. So I'm actually going to have to use some guards here. However, this metal injection molding blade does an excellent job of cutting. It never pulls, it never gets hot, and it really just gets through the hair quite well. So little by little, I'm doing the exact same thing. I started with it tipped out so I can put in a nice soft guideline, and I started to angle it down little by little. Now, this is definitely a much more noticeably different shape, and it's a little bit larger, and it's a little bit harder for me to kind of maneuver it behind the ears, but it just took a little getting used to. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just saying, like, when I went from one to the other, that was my first kind of impression. I was like, this is definitely a little bit more bulky. So all in all, though, the lever, the way it moves, the way it cuts, very, very smooth, very nice. And I do have the LowPRO FX One system, and I've compared both of these, and technically they have the same motor, same runtime, obviously share the same battery. So if you would like something a little bit smaller, you can always go with that LowPRO. However, I do gotta say that for some reason, the Gold FX version seems to cut smoother to me. Could be Could be just me. I don't know, but stay tuned because we're going to use a couple other Babyliss tools on this side. I am also getting annoyed by that C cup, and I'm wanting to kind of get in there and fix it. So little by little, as you see, I've got this pretty close to closed, and that bottom line has come out quite nicely. I'm actually going to pick up this silver FX, and this is like the silver bullet. And as you can see, it is not the right tool to use on his hair. It was really just sort of pushing his hair instead of cutting it. There's a lot of teeth on this style of blade. I really do prefer their original Gold FX blade. I don't think I would have had as much going back and forth. But of course, I mean, you could still cut with it. It's still fine. But I would definitely have probably ruled this trimmer out if I knew then what I know now. You know, I'm looking at it now and I'm like, you know, I don't really remember feeling like I was struggling then, but I could totally see that this would have been much easier with either the Instinct trimmer or even my Johnny B one. Next up, we're going to use the single foil. This is the Babyliss single foil. These are pretty impressive machines. This is a really high quality single foil, and it comes at a pretty good cost. So these are like 5.5 hours of runtime. If I'm wrong, I'll put that on the screen. All metal body, pretty heavy, and they have that UV light that's supposed to help disinfect. But we know that it doesn't kill bloodborne pathogens, so we still have to spray it. However, you know, the idea is pretty solid, and the cap and everything about that is actually just a really, really good premium machine. And if you guys haven't seen the new stick shaver review, I'll drop a link to that one. We now have that one. It took a while for it to get here. And this was actually like one of the first days that I had this Gold FX. I've had this sitting on my hard drive forever, and I haven't got around to this edit. So now I'm trying to soften this up with clipper over comb the best that I can. And you can see that there's still a pretty good amount of work that needs to be done here. And clipper over comb is just not going to cut it because of the way that curl tips into the head. The hair is just sticking and matting down. And unfortunately, Babyliss got the bad end of the hair. This was obviously going to be the more difficult side to work on. However, it's no problem. I'm going to put my guards on here in a second, and I'm going to go through it. And I really don't think that there is better guards than the double magnetics from Stylecraft. And now there's the new tight guards that are actually available for everybody. You're going to see me pull them out. But right now I have a 1.5 and I have it in the open position. Now, just because I have guards on it doesn't mean that I won't use the same techniques. One, I could tip it out to create a little bit more space. Two, I could tip it on an angle to kind of chip into that. And you can already see that 1 1/2 did a really good job of softening up that area I was struggling with. It just simply would not have been worth it for me to try to sink the teeth of that comb and do this with clipper over comb. I could have made a mistake, and I'm trying my best to not make mistakes. Obviously, with a haircut like this, one little mistake and this whole haircut is not a low fade anymore. So we switch back over to the number 1. Now, this is one of the tight guards, and now I'm really trying to flip my wrist. I'm really just trying to make very little changes throughout the process as I work with it. And I gotta say, this side came out really nice, and we're going to use a little bit of shear over comb to get really specific and start to lighten up those areas. If you're not comfortable with shear over comb, we do have a tutorial. Actually, it's a full video about everything you could ever talk about as it relates to shear over comb, and I will drop it in the link in the description to this video as well. But it is just the ultimate technique for trying to do stuff like this. There comes a point where you need to know when you set your clippers down and you pick up your shears. There's a reason why we have shears, and a lot of you guys are a little afraid to use them, but they're really the ultimate tool when it comes to doing low fades. So using the right size comb is also another big advantage. I actually have a Johnny B taper comb. However, any taper comb, anything that could get me down into that length, that's going to be a big advantage. And now you guys see me using just the points of the shears to just kind of get in there and break up some of those areas. So now I can rotate back and forth between the clipper, between the shears, and just be really careful about what it is that I'm doing so that I don't make a mistake. Once I can rule out the fact that shears aren't fixing it, I can pick up the clipper. I always have to know when I'm going to jump back and forth, and it's just all about being careful, and all of this will come with time. And that's why typically I usually follow a 6-phase approach to cutting hair. And it doesn't mean that the phases need to be done in order. It's just a way that I present it. It's a way that I explain it. So when I did the back of the haircut, I decided to go back to the Instincts. I found it was just a little bit easier for me to sort of snap in that blend and knock that out. And the back of people's haircuts can be really challenging because you could see he's got hair that's just swooping down, growing this way and this way. And, you know, it's just a lot of little detail work that you got to be careful with and not take too much. So a lot of you guys want to do better, like low fades and stuff, but a lot of you don't realize where you need to leave some weight, and you really need to leave a lot of weight right around the parietal ridge or even lower sometimes when you're doing these. So confirm with the client, and I'm going to use the Mohawk guideline, and I'm cutting it straight down the center actually. So one big Mohawk guideline right down the center. I've talked about this many times on the channel, but the next step that I will be using is I will be moving off of the Mohawk guideline that I just created, and I'm going to start moving back in sections. So I see a stationary guideline, which I just created, and then I'm going to develop a traveling guideline, which I'm just going to stay in this little section moving back. And then I'll come down a little further. Now I've expanded it a little further, and I will do the same thing on both sides. Right now you see me doing a lot of point cutting. That's because I want there to be a lot of texture. I have an end game in mind. I know exactly how I want to style this. I literally seen it from the moment he sat down, what I felt would look good. If you're not comfortable with point cutting right now, that's okay. You can always add the texture later. You can use texturizing shears. You can do this in a variety of different ways. But all I'm doing right now is I'm walking my guideline from the middle down to the sides. And it's not always a perfect process. Sometimes you're going to miss some hairs. You're just going to have to be thorough, comb through it a few more times, and try to find any of the hairs that are not flowing the way that you want. But pay attention to how I do the bangs here in a second. A lot of you guys don't understand, and I know this for a fact. Whenever I get a new client, especially that had a haircut like this, that went somewhere else, they don't know how to blend in the bangs. You can keep the bangs as long as you want, but you have to know how to blend your interior length into the bangs so that they don't wind up with a bunch of long hair that just doesn't flow well. So I'm going to show you guys how to avoid that. And right now, I'm just kind of going through. This is sort of like a check step. You see my sections are getting bigger. I'm just kind of looking for anything. Now, if I cut horizontally, I'm going to cross-check vertically, or I can cross-check somewhat diagonally. So if you see me sort of picking up sections more like this, or even this, you know that I'm kind of checking them out. And especially when I check, that's when you're going to do any of your adjusting with some point cutting. So you see me kind of just going around. I'm going to point cut it. I'm going to add more texture in. I'm going to try to just get as much movement into this hair as I can, because it's really fine. And that means it's going to look really good with a lot of texture. It's going to look like there's more. It's going to look like there's more movement. Okay, so here we are with the bangs. Now I'm actually going to hold them up. I'm just going to put in my first few cuts because I want to establish the length. So right now there is a little bit of tension on the hair, but after that, I'm not going to put any more tension on the hair when I do this. And you see how carefully I'm just putting in just a couple of chops. So now I'm going to actually start reducing the tension. You can see me reducing the tension. I'm going to use that shear point, and I'm going to start to establish a really nice bottom line here. So now I'm all done with the tension. There's obviously a colic here. If I pull that straight, it's not going to look straight when I cut it. So now I'm really starting to kind of dial it in and focus on making sure that I get this exactly how I want it, especially with that colic area. So you're going to see I'm going to use the tips of the shears. I'm going to cruise right across the center, and I have it pretty nice and even now. So I want it to lay even. It doesn't have to be perfectly even. That's a big difference. So here comes the blend. Y'all ready? I've established what my zero is on my bangs, and now I'm going to pick it up in pie sections from the top. And if it was way longer, all you would see me do is over direct, and I would clean up any hair that's there. So you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm using point cutting to blend that in. And if my interior length was shorter, I could over direct and keep the bangs longer. If it's not, it might look like it's straight off the head. But just making sure that you do that extra step, because what does the client look at, right? They look at the very front of their hair. They're going to see that immediately. And if that's not flowing right, then you're definitely going to wind up, having some problems. So now I actually have some texturizing shears. I'm going to go through and add just a little bit more motion just to the tips. I'm going down about 1 inch, and I can kind of comb through, and I can sort of feel and see exactly what's thick and what's not. So that's something that you'll develop, you know, throughout your career. I could literally look at a section of hair and how it's laying, and I could see exactly what could be thinned and what needs to be left alone. So, all right, we got the jet liner. This is a pretty cool blow dryer, real futuristic, totally LCD screen. I love this blow dryer a lot. It actually has a bunch of different settings and bells and whistles to it, but most importantly, it dries the hair super quick, and it has an awesome filtration system on the back, because when you have problems with blow dryers, like you see my XL right here, it's really important that you keep the back of your blow dryer, which is actually where I have my microphone, but you have the back of your blow dryer, it has to stay clean. And the XLs, they draw from the sides and the back, so they generate a ton of velocity, but with that comes some responsibility. You have to keep that clean, and hairspray or hair getting in there can cause issues, especially with digital brushless motors. So that jet liner has a really great filter on the back, and it makes it much harder for that to get clogged, and you get 2 filters in the box. You can keep it clean. So right now, basically what you see is I'm heading into my phase 6. Phase 6 really can mean anything, but it really means just any detailing, anything that you see, you're giving it a thorough look. I actually really like to pull out my cell phone during this time, because the cell phone is going to kind of point out where a lot of mistakes are, and I'm going to just try to identify anything that's not perfect and fix it. And now that we've got that complete, let's go ahead. We're going to actually put in a styling powder. I have my Tomb 45 applicator, and I'm going to just drop in a bunch of powder, and now I'm going to work it in with my fingertips. And now you're going to see all that texture that I tried to put in there. You're going to see that work itself out. Like we talked about, like this cool different style. And, you know, he was really digging this. Really a great dude. Extremely smart. He graduated like top of his class in medical school, and wound up going into finance. And I wish I could have shared with you guys the conversation we had. Really just I was really impressed with him, and you know, I wish him well. And if you're watching this, man, I appreciate you for letting me film. This is my first time ever seeing him, and I was like, dude, your hair is so cool. So, you know, please let me film it. So what do you guys think about the cut? Drop it in the comments. We'll be moving on to the next video here. If you guys are interested in any of the tools that are not Gamma or Stylecraft, you guys can check out my Williamsport barber supply link down below, and you guys can save some cash with the code Eddie10. And if you guys are interested in anything Gamma Stylecraft, you already know you guys can use the code Eddie. You can save 10% off of any of your purchases. Now, let's pick a winner real quick. Like, who do you think actually won? Personally, I actually think it was just a little bit easier. And it's not by much, but it was just a little bit easier for me to use the Instinct. The size, the shape, the ergonomics to it just felt a little better, and always have, than the flashlight shape. However, I gotta say, that Babyliss blade, it's next level, man, and it just feels special. And if you guys are a fan of those Babyliss, of those flashlight type of shapes, you're really gonna love that FX1 system. Happy shopping, you guys. This is the YBA 700 videos to help you learn, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.